Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Hello, can anyone hear me?
Hello, good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon.
Oh, okay, perfect. So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for coming out today for this particular special workshop. Obviously, of course, I understand that we are currently celebrating Christmas, and a lot of us are still eating our Christmas rice and all that, still in the eve of celebration and the rest. But again, I mean, from the look of things, what we're about to share here is just basic knowledge that would go a long way to helping you with your Commonwealth scholarship application. I know the application just opened a couple of days, if not weeks ago. And for the PhD specifically, you have just very few timeline to make sure you put in your application and do the needful if you really want to be considered for the scholarship. So ideally, we are going to be presenting and sharing some of the useful tips, some of the quality information you will need to go on to making yourself an outstanding candidate for this section 2021-2022 PhD scholarship application. Right. So obviously we are not going to waste any much time because it's already 3 o'clock and it's expected that if you really are interested in this particular event, then you should be on time. So without wasting much of the time, I'll be introducing our panelists who have actually made out their time to join us in this event and share from their own wealth of experience as regards to the PhD scholarship application. Commonwealth scholarship application is one of the prestigious scholarship you can ever win. And I mean, I'm also a recipient of the Master's Commonwealth scholarship application. So I actually know the benefits that you can actually get from this scholarship, ranging from your flight ticket and monthly stipend, and as well as your tuition fees being offsetted. So it's really a good thing that you take this thing very serious and pay close attention to the information we're going to share here, which obviously is going to help you guys towards achieving your goal of getting the scholarship. So the first person I will be introducing is one of our panelists, Cyprian. And I mean, when I tried pronouncing his surname, it sounded more like an Igbo name in Nigeria here. So I know some persons might try to pronounce it like Kambili, which means like, let me leave. So I don't know what it means in his dialect. Maybe he would probably throw some light to that when he's introducing himself. So Cyprian, over to you. Can you just tell us briefly about yourself, your name, the program you're currently on, and then the school you're attending currently under the Commonwealth PhD scholarship?
Thank you very much, Chinonso. I hope I've pronounced your name correctly.
Yeah, that's fine.
Of course, I am a PhD scholar at the University of Kent, in the Kent Law School. And of course, the pronunciation of my surname is correct, Kambili, but it means a different thing in my language. It means something like a rumor. Something like, because it's not very easy to translate these vernacular languages into English. It's like you can always do your best, but it's an equivalent. I managed to successfully apply for a Commonwealth PhD scholarship in 2019, which means I'm now in my second year of my PhD studies. Okay. And I will shortly be applying for extension, because initially it's awarded for like 1.5 years, and you need to apply for an extension to cover the remaining years after you have successfully passed your confirmation, because most universities will initially admit you in the first year on probation. And I come from Malawi. Of course, Commonwealth scholarship is not easy, because the hardest thing is not knowing what to do. I mean, there are very smart people around, but the hardest thing, just as with a master's scholarship, most people don't really know what to do. I mean, you come to your application with a very African mindset, and it is not very easy to actually follow what exactly you're supposed to do. So I'd be very happy to share with you any questions that Chinonso might ask and lead in the discussion. Otherwise, feel free to ask questions, because if you don't ask, we have a saying in my language is that if you don't ask questions, you actually burn your blankets, because you'll be crying in your blankets throughout the night because you have left things unsaid. So feel free to ask your questions and take the opportunity offered. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much, Cyprian, for that brief introduction. That was really spot on. And I don't know if it was me alone, but I think maybe your mic is not loud enough. I didn't want to cut you short, so I wanted you to finish before I actually point it out. So you might try to increase the volume of your speaker so that everyone can hear you, because I tried as much as possible to come closer in order to hear everything you say. Thank you so much. I appreciate your quick introduction. And then, just like he pointed out, if you have any question pertaining to this PhD scholarship application, you have the chat box. So just type your question there, and I will try and pick out as much as possible. I also have one of my colleagues who is also a member of the First Class Leaders Network, who will be picking up these questions and be drawing my attention to it. So Nadia will be there to pick out your questions as well. So feel free to ask your questions. We're here for you. And I believe Cyprian and the other panelists I'll be introducing would do well to answer your questions. Moving on to the next panelist, I'll be introducing our second panelist for today, by name Charity. So sorry, I really don't know how to pronounce the surname. It's quite difficult. So obviously, maybe when you come in, I would learn better and then, improve. Introduce yourself, Charity.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Okay. Hope you can hear me clearly.
Yeah, we can hear you. I think.
Okay. I don't know if my video is on. It's showing on here, but I just need to be sure it's not really clear here. Okay.
Yeah, we can see you now. Yeah, we can see you now.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much, Chinonso, for inviting me today to talk about our experience. So yes, my name is a bit long, can be a bit hard to pronounce because it's a compound name, my maiden name and then my husband's name, but it's Charity Aenobi Asekare. So that's the full pronunciation, but you can just call me Charity for today. That would be very, very okay. So Commonwealth Scholarship, yes, it's a game changer. I actually got it the second time I applied. I missed it the first time. So I went back to the drawing board, looked at my application again. Where did I make mistakes? Where did I go wrong? So I would be able to come back stronger and better and then get it done. So it involves a lot of dynamics, a lot of things are in play because you'll be competing not just at the national level, but also at an international level with persons who have varied backgrounds, varied experiences. So even for the organizers, it's going to be a tough choice because the best of the best are actually coming out to say, pick me, I'm good enough for this, I deserve it. So thank you very much for inviting me. I'm glad to share and help someone to make that leap and also cross over and enjoy what we all get to enjoy. So thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Charity. I appreciate your being here, making our time to share from your word of experience, how you think or how you have gone through this process and you were successful in it. So obviously a lot of people out here will be trying to understand what exactly you did specifically towards getting this scholarship. So ideally, from my little search, I discovered that for you to actually qualify for the Commonwealth, any Commonwealth scholarship, obviously they are looking at there are certain criteria you have to meet. For example, the first one is academic merit. The second is the impact of your proposed work on development of your country, in particular, looking at the country where you're coming from. And then because we are specifically focusing on the PhD, we're talking about the quality of your project proposal, because I believe that's also one of the criteria for you to actually secure the scholarship. So I was starting with you with Charity, because I believe most of the application centers on basically the essays and the rest of them. So what do you think? How do you approach your essay when you were actually writing? For example, picking on the first one, which is the developmental impact statement. What and what did you pick out when you were writing this essay, when you were structuring this essay? What and what did you pick out? What kind of information did you include in your essay that made you stand out in the application?
Okay, so I have some things that you take into consideration when writing about the development impact. So it's 3 sections. We have development impact, the first section, the second section, and then the third section. So basically, when you're writing,
Sorry, excuse me.
Writing.
Is it just me, or is someone else explaining the challenge? Because I'm not sure I can hear her. I just want to confirm everybody is hearing her.
She's breaking up. We can't hear her.
The network is not that bad.
Charity, I think there might be an issue with your earpiece or something.
Okay. Okay. I don't want. Can you hear me now?
Maybe you can switch off your video.
It's still.
Okay, can everyone hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll be talking a bit loudly because I'm not using my earpiece right now. So the development impact section, basically in 3 areas. So what I did was ensure that I tied my development impact statements to the sustainable development goals that I picked. So firstly, ensure you use statistics that are relative not just to the global scene, but also narrow it down to the local scene, especially to the locality where you are going to be conducting your research. Because the short of the long story is that for your development impact, you are going to be laying out a problem, and then you are going to be telling them how you propose to solve that problem through your research, or at least mitigate it or reduce that issue a bit through your research. So you want to give them statistics. How relevant is it? Right now, the sustainable development goals are what majority of persons, at least within the health sector or other sectors, are looking at. So when you pick out your sustainable development goals, I believe they should be about 3. You want to tie it to the development impact you are writing about, and then also tie it to the CSC theme you selected. For me, I selected strengthening health systems. So I had to tie that to my development impact. Another thing you want to also consider when you're writing development impact, it's not just all about talking about the statistics, talking about the problem. You also want to engage whoever will be reading your statement emotionally. So you have to bring in that personal touch. Is there a personal experience you have relative to the research you are doing, relative to the impact you are trying to make? So for me, I had a relative on my mother's side who died of cancer. So I was able to tie that to why I wanted to work in that particular area. So your personal experience is also very important. Then when you're also talking about the development impact, you want to ensure that your project's objective, because you'll be picking out discussion points, you'll be picking out to really bring out what you're trying to see is the project objective should help achieve that a sustainable development goal. So if you are picking out some targets in the sustainable development goal, good. The more specific you are, the better. You want to also briefly explain how the skills you are going to gain from the being awarded a scholarship is going to help achieve that sustainable goal if they award you that scholarship and then you go further to carry out the research proposal you are doing. So long story short, you have to be specific about who this proposal is going to help. For instance, mine is mainly focused on young persons, especially in school adolescents. So you target this, be very specific, don't be ambiguous, because persons that will be reading your development impact statement, they might not have a whole lot of idea of your field, but if you're ambiguous, they would know. They can easily point it out. So be specific as best you can. You can even go further, because that's what I did. Project practically how your proposal, how your research is going to make impacts, and how it's going to be measured. If you give statistics, fine. You can project in a year, in 2 years, how is whatsoever you are proposing to do is going to impact the development in your country. So these are some of the areas where I think is going to help a lot as regards your development impact statements. Thank you. Hope I was not hope it was very clear.
Yeah, thank you so much, Charity. Thank you for that information. From the look of things, you pointed out specifically some of the things that applicants should actually pinpoint and put down in their essays whenever they are writing their essays. For example, Charity said you guys have to be specific with your goals, put in statistics if you eventually found something to quantify the kind of problem you want to address, and then be specific. Don't go and say you want to solve poverty in Africa, or you want to solve so many big goals like that in Africa. Just tailor it down to a particular goal. So thank you so much, Charity, for that wonderful information. Now I'll be moving on to Cyprian. Now, Cyprian, I understand that you're coming from a law background, right? So could you actually point out specifically some of the relevant details you actually included in your development impact statement? Because I think these are the specific informations that go a long way to helping someone win the scholarship. So can you just throw a brief information about that?
Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me now. I've tried to adjust.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. That's a very good question, because it's not very easy to talk about law and development, especially if you come from a particular background. But what I focused on in my development impact was an area that I'm researching on, because what I'm researching on has something to do with agricultural market and small farmers. So what I did was to find out as much as I can about the problem of small farmers in my country, like in Malawi. And actually, I discovered, like, for example, to give a very specific example, that 70% of produce in Malawi and most sub-Saharan Africans is from small-scale farmers. But the biggest challenge is the access to markets. So I was able to collect all these statistics and be as specific as I can. Actually, for sustainable development goals, I picked up no poverty, because most of the small-scale farmers, for example, are associated with poverty. I also spoke about no hunger, and had my statistics on hand on the problems that arise of hunger, especially from the perspective of small-scale farmers. And I generally talked about economic growth, because the agricultural production for most countries in sub-Saharan Africa is the major engine, and you have to have your figures on hand. You have to be specific, as the charity said, because your audience, the person who will be reading your application and grading it, actually, this is something that I can mention. The applications are all graded and they're awarded marks. And if you go to the Commonwealth scholarships page, you actually find the grading scheme. And under development impact, they look at how you have actually been able to bring all these matters to demonstrate that your research will contribute in whatever little way to the development of your country, in such a way that any person reading the development impact statement without being told more would really agree and appreciate that this research, whatever little impact, is going to make an impact. It's going to improve development, however you look at development. So just to add that be specific, avoid being general, because general statements are easy to make, and know that actually what you're writing will be graded by any of the professors, because it's actually the professors who will be marking your application. And they are very fair, but they are also very strict. So you have to really comply with everything that has been pointed out and be specific. Avoid general statements. General statements do not help. I really like the approach that the charity took of adding a personal touch. For me, because I added the specific experience, I've worked in the field of agricultural markets as a lawyer I worked in that field for like 4 years. So, and I interacted with small farmers that I knew their personal problems. So the personal touch for me came from the problems that they will tell me about when they are trying to access markets. And that really made a difference. So it depends on you on what personal perspective you want to put into the application. And it will depend on your experience and outlook. Thank you very much, Nonso.
All right. Thank you so much for that wonderful addition. That was really an eye-opener. I mean, I believe our audience must have heard everything you've said. You have to be specific, tied to a sustainable development goal. Make sure you tailor it down to a particular CSC team. There are about 6 CSC teams, so try and tailor it down to that particular team and make sure that everything is all tied together to your project and your research. Now, before we begin to pick out some of the questions from the chat, I can see a lot of questions are coming in from the chat, but I want to first of all focus on one of the key things that makes you an outstanding PhD candidate for Commonwealth scholarship, which is the quality of your research proposal. Now, I believe this is one of the critical components to you being selected for the opportunity. So I would want to understand, what exactly did you guys put in when you were writing your PhD proposal? How do you structure your PhD proposal? What did you do first? Did you start from the background and then go on to discuss the aims and objective? And how long was your project proposal? What's the duration? What's the length of time, spaces you occupied trying to address a particular problem you want to address in your research? So I will be starting with Cyprian this time. Can you share your experience on that?
Thank you very much, Nonso. The proposal is actually one of the areas that carries a lot of quite a few. That is a determining factor, because it is like what holds the whole application together. And what I did is try as much as possible to follow the instructions and understand what I was being asked to do, because I believe the question has not changed. It asks you to explain what you would like to research or your research proposal in non-technical words, assuming that the person who is reading it is somebody well-informed, and I've already told you that it's professors who will be reading these proposals of different backgrounds. So the most important thing is don't use technical language, no matter how much you are tempted. Be as ordinary as possible. If you're going to use any technical words, define them, immediately use them, that I'm going to use this technical word in this sense all over. And make sure it's in 3 parts: your research question, significance, and methodology. Unless it has changed, these are the 3 key components of the research proposal. And the research questions, avoid the rambling questions. Ask very clear, absolutely clear questions. And make sure you limit the number of questions. For example, I would not put 7 questions in my Commonwealth Scholarship PhD application. In my case, I think I put about 3 or 4. So you have the main question, then the sub questions. That is it. Then when it comes to methodology, this is where most people get it, find the challenges. With methodology, you have to be very, very clear whether you're doing quantitative or qualitative methodologies. In my case, I was doing qualitative methodology, and you have to explain, because the people who be reading know very well what these methodologies mean. I mean, any social scientist will know whether you're not saying the truth or your knowledge is not adequate. So make sure you clearly spell out what you're going to do exactly, whether you're going to do desk research and for what purpose and where you're going to do it. For example, you'd say the desk research will be done in England, or in the UK when you're doing your PhD through library research. Then when it comes to empirical work, you have to be very specific as to whether you're going to conduct interviews and who you're going to interview and on what basis and what you hope to achieve. So make every sentence count, don't waste words, because the whole proposal has you are required to write about, I'm not sure, it could be 800 words, and those are not many words. You type a few things and you discover that you're halfway through. That's how hard it can be. But if you are prepared, make sure every sentence counts, then you apportion an appropriate number of words to that part. And when it comes to significance, again, for me, I had my figures ready because I knew exactly how much agriculture contributes to the economy of my country. And I had a rough estimate of what improvement to access to markets by small-scale farmers, for example, would mean for the whole economy. And the attempts that have been made in the academic literature to actually address these matters, and that this is one of the major debates in the subject. I'm not a lawyer, but I had to read a lot of agricultural economics literature to appreciate that this is really very significant. And I guess because I was very interdisciplinary in spelling out the significance of the problem that I was trying to research, I think that must have made a big impression on whoever was reading it. Because one of the major research areas that get funding is interdisciplinary research. So that is what I can say on the quality of a research proposal. This is the anchor of the whole research proposal. Thank you very much, Nonso. Nonso, you need to unmute yourself, please.
Sorry, thank you so much. Thank you, Cyprian, for that wonderful information. And like you said, project proposal is very, very critical to your PhD selection. I mean, if you get every other aspect right, but get your project proposal wrong, then I'm not sure you will be selected for the award. So everything needs to all tick together. Everything needs to come together to make you an ideal candidate for the PhD position. Okay, moving on to Charity. Charity, I would want to understand, I mean, Cyprian has spoken from his law background, so I would want to understand your own perspective coming from a health promotion background. So could you share what are the specific details you include when you were drafting your research proposal?
Okay, thank you, Johnson, and thank you also, Mr. Cyprian, been said a lot, so I'll build on what he has said for my own background. So basically, what I did for my proposal.
Sorry, Charity. I think we're also having another issue with your network. I don't know what's actually. We can't hear you.
Okay. Can everybody hear me now?
Yeah, it's better now.
Yeah, it's better now.
Okay. All right. So I think I'll just keep my video off so the network is much more much better. So what I did from my own background was segment my research proposal. So starting from the research outline, because there will be an area where they will ask you for your research outline. So basically have this word in mind when you're writing that research outline. It is your abstract without results. That's what you are doing for your research outline. You give your introduction, you give a brief literature review, you talk about the methodology, but you leave out the results. That is your research outline. That area is very, very brief. So that is what you build on when you now go into the area called the detailed plan of research. So for my detailed plan of research, I did my introduction. My work was focusing on how to go about behavioral communication, ensure we are able to influence the decision of young persons so they don't consume tobacco, so they don't engage in smoking. So basically, tobacco use contributes to one of the highest causes of cancer, one of the major contributing causes of cancer in the world. So I narrowed it down from in my introduction from the global scene to the local scene. Talked about the cases of cancer there is in Nigeria. Then talked about ensuring that I bring in a primary intervention, talking about ensuring prevention. So that was my own approach. So I brought those in my introduction, talked about the literature review, why it's good to catch them young, ensure we cut off the primary users being young persons so they don't get addicted and eventually become consistent users, leading to cancer, not just for themselves, but also for passive smokers as well. So introduction, literature review, briefly, because you are going to be using a specific number of words and you have to be very, very careful, like Mr. Cyprian said. So I also talked about, in between, I talked about the impact that my study would have. Now, we have talked about development impact, gone into it in details in the previous essays, but I also brought it in a little bit here. Now, I looked at my development impact from 3 areas: the health area, the development area, and then also see how it could contribute to policy, because when you're talking about impact, if you're talking about impact and in a way policy is not connected in between, I don't think it would be very, very concrete, because everything rises and falls on the policies of a country or the health policy you are looking at. So I looked at it from that perspective to form, I'll go again, my introduction, brief literature review, the impact. Then I talked about the aim. I was very brief, like Mr. Cyprian said, very, very straightforward. I wasn't ambiguous. I was specific about the aim. I also talked about my objectives. Like he said, don't give 6, 7 objectives, very specific. I had just 3, and I ensured everything I wrote was around those 3 objectives. Then talking about my research questions, also very specific. Then my methodology and data collection was another section I had. I explained briefly, mine was mixed methods approach. I'll be using quantitative and then qualitative means for generating my data. So I talked about it briefly, how I'll be collecting it, how I'll be going about to the schools, getting their consent. These are very salient things when you're talking about your research, when it deals with persons that are underage, talking about consent and assent. So these are some of the things I put into consideration. Then finally, the last section of my detailed plan of research was my references. When I was giving my detailed plan of research, I had to conserve space. So I would just use numbers, make a statement, maybe put 1, and then in my reference, that would be the first reference I would list. So wherever you see in my plan of research, you see 1, 2, 3 to 10, I would later came at the end of it to list out the reference. I was, like Mr. Sipran said, it was a bit difficult, but I ensured I imputed a lot of things that would have been seen in a very detailed research proposal. So I ended with references. I listed out my references so they would know exactly where I got those information from. Then another thing I think is also very important when you are talking about your detailed plan of research is the development impact section. I know I've made mention of it, but try and see how you can tie it again so that you keep whoever is reading your plan of research in mind of what you had previously said in your development impact statement. I hope I was very clear. I know I was speaking a bit fast, but I hope everyone got what I said.
Yeah.
Hello? Hello? Hello, Chinonso.
Sorry. Hello, sorry yet again. I actually forgot to unmute myself. I mean, I don't know why this is reoccurring, but it's absolutely fine. I hope you guys forgive me. So I'm trying to recap what Charity said, we pointed out. So it's quite important you do the needful and make sure you pick out the right details. And one thing I actually agree with her, it's the reference aspect. Like, because you have really short word count, so you might want to use the Vancouver style of reference in which she mentioned, like, and at the end of the day, provide the full reference towards your PhD proposal for your scholarship. So yeah, moving on from that, I would want to know, I mean, I'll probably pick out 1 or 2 questions from the chat and then return back to the specific questions as well. Someone was asking, is it possible to get admitted and submit all documents before the deadline? Like, I understand that the deadline is quite short because before now, they used to give like interval of 3 months, sometimes 2 months. But now the application just opened couple of days or even weeks back, and then you are expected to finish everything before 18th of January. So how feasible is that, ranging from getting a supervisor down to getting admission and then completing your application? How feasible is that? I'll be directing the question to Charity, please.
Okay, thank you, Chinon. So in my own experience, if the Commonwealth scholarship is already something you've had at the back of your mind, something that you've been working towards, then it's going to be a smooth, especially if you're already in contact with the school. But at the moment, given the time frame, if you're not already in contact with the school, it might be a bit difficult, because in Nigeria, one of the criterion that was used for us was that we already had an admission letter. We already had admission into at least one of the schools that we listed. There are about 3 schools. You're going to be mentioning about 3 schools in your application. So it's going to be very difficult. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. But if you are very fast, maybe the school has a structure where you are able to quickly reach supervisors that have interest in your research areas, and then that supervisor replies quickly, promptly, then there's a higher chance. But if you've not already started doing that, you need to start doing that right away, immediately. Is very important, especially for the Nigerian candidates. I don't really know for other countries. Maybe Mr. Cyprian will be able to tell us how it works there in his own place. But in Nigeria, if you already have an admission letter in hand, it's better for you. So reach out, whichever school you are applying to, quickly reach out to the supervisor and make sure you follow up back to back. Ensure you follow up with the supervisor so they reply on time. Immediately they agree, okay, you finish whatever you need to finish in the application. And then I think it takes about 2-3 weeks if the school is very fast to give you an admission letter. The UK, getting admission in UK schools is not very, very difficult. Immediately you have your research clearly spelled out, your supervisor is totally with you, you are good to go. So 18th January is still feasible. It's a very close call, but it's still feasible if you work very, very fast. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Charity. Thank you for that information. Now, I want to understand this particular question from your own point of view, Cyprian. Is it compulsory that you must have admission before you apply before you finalize your PhD application? Because I know for some areas, for some regions, they used to go through the process of interview and the rest of them. So is it possible for you to just not have admission before you complete your PhD application?
Thank you very much. The instructions on the form say no, but then there's the Commonwealth scholarships also say that the different nominating agencies have their own rules, which the Commonwealth does not interfere with. So I would understand the Nigerian nominating agencies requiring that you should have an offer. But in my case, the scholarship nominating agency was the Canon Collins Trust for Southern Africa. They do not require that you should have an offer. Because what happens if your scholarship application is successful, another process starts, it's called placement, where the university actually negotiates with Commonwealth scholarships. Because every university in the UK has an agreement with Commonwealth scholarships to take students that are offered Commonwealth scholarships. And at that moment, you can actually be made an offer. But you are not prejudiced in any way if you do not have an offer. Because looking at my own experience, the first time I applied for a Commonwealth scholarship was in 2018, but I was not successful. However, I learned a few things, and one of them was to make sure that I have all my documents ready. So although I did not have access to the Commonwealth scholarship application system, I knew I had to have my proposal, my personal statement, and development impact ready. So I had this on hand. And on the other hand, I had to get in touch with the university. And actually, I started working, preparing all these documents in April, knowing that I'll be applying in October. So this gave me time to consider all aspects of my application. And actually started communicating with my supervisor, because one aspect about the form and on which you're actually given marks is how good has been your communication with your supervisor. There are actually some marks awarded for this. If you have not communicated with your supervisor, the chances are that if it is 5 marks, you get 0. So I started my communication with my supervisor in July. And the communications went on until September, when I think September, when my supervisor was quite satisfied, because I had to revise my proposal a number of times. And when the scholarship applications were open, I had everything. I was just cutting from my files and putting it on the form. So you really need to give yourself enough time. That's my advice. Although you can do it, but you need the chances of making mistakes are very high if you do it in a rush. So a PhD scholarship is something that is quite involving. You're talking about 3 years work. So it's worth giving yourself time. Or if you really want to do it now, I wouldn't mind canceling my Christmas and New Year celebrations. I mean, I would eat rice later. The most important thing is this scholarship application. That's what I would focus on. I mean, now I have my family all the time. I'll be with them once I'm done with my form on the 18th of January. So lock yourself up and focus. It is doable, but you need the discipline to be able to do that. It's something that you can do. And make sure you relate very well with your supervisor. If you should have one by now, if you don't have, then make sure you send an email so that when they are in office on the 4th of January, they immediately see it. I mean, you don't push them, but you can mention that I don't know if you'll be able to reply, but I have maybe a deadline of the 18th. I mean, you can mention it in a very diplomatic way, because when you're dealing with the people in England, you don't force them. You ask them very nicely, very politely. So I think that is my experience. Give it time. I mean, applying for a PhD scholarship is something that is involving. Give it enough time and find out as much as you can as possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Cyprian. Thank you for that information. It's really important you give your PhD scholarship time, like he rightfully pointed out. Every good thing demands considerable amounts of time if you want to be successful in it. So you need to really give it time if you want to achieve that scholarship you're looking out for. And then picking up from what you said, you mentioned something about if you've not really contacted the supervisor, then you have to pick it up now. And then I also read from the application portal that for you to actually go on to make an application, you should have made contact with at least 3 institutions. How feasible is that? I mean, can you actually apply with one, like when you've made contact with just one supervisor, can you actually apply for that particular scholarship? Because I mean, for a PhD, you need to contact 3 different persons in 3 different schools, and then you're supposed to write a proposal, and then you submit to them, and then they review, and then they give you admission. So that's really a lot of time, given the time frame we have, given the short period of time. So do you think you can go ahead and make this application with just one admission, one supervisor in the UK university? Cyprian, I'm asking you, please.
Thank you very much. Actually, that's exactly what I did. I had just one university, the University of Kent. The reason why I did that was because I developed through communication with my supervisor a very good relationship. So much so that I was very sure that the university would give me a place of study. So I actually mentioned that in my scholarship application, that the reason why I just have one choice is that I've developed a very good relationship with the university, such that I'm almost assured that I check or meet all the requirements that they need from prospective PhD students. So I did not go into, actually I had contacted other universities, but I did not get a response. If you mention that, the Commonwealth scholarships will be very understanding. So I went for one university. It was actually very good for me because I focused on this university so much so that even the university itself offered me a scholarship. I had 2 scholarships, Commonwealth and the university scholarship. I had to choose one. But this is because I focused on the university, understood my supervisor's publications, and tailored my proposal and everything towards meeting the goals of the university. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. That was really spot on, because I think it's going to be quite difficult to explain all these things, when you must have applied to 3 different universities. It's going to be extremely difficult because we all have limited word count. You can imagine writing, the contact you've made with your supervisor in the UK, and then you're writing for that 3 different supervisors you've contacted. Like, you probably wouldn't spend so much time discussing about one thing and then you jump to other ones. That means you'll be giving just a very basic and surface information without going into detail of the information you need to provide to make you an outstanding candidate. So thank you so much for that exposition. So that means to our dear candidate and applicant, it's possible to go ahead and apply for PhD scholarship with just one supervisor and one university. That would give you opportunity to at least explain better what you are currently going to do, because you don't have much time to contact as many supervisors as possible. So yeah, moving on to the next question, one of the attendee asked, he said, I don't have a project proposal, so and I want to do a PhD in pharmaceutical science. How feasible is that, Charity? Do you think that is possible?
So please, could you repeat your question? I didn't hear you.
I think, Nonso, your mic is on mute.
Yes, you're muted. I couldn't hear you.
Sorry. My question is, one of the applicants asked, I don't have a project proposal, and do you think it will be feasible for me to, get the PhD scholarship in pharmaceutical science? Like, he doesn't have a project proposal right now. How feasible is that, applying for this scholarship?
Wow. That's going to be a very difficult one, because majority of everything about the scholarship is tied to what you are proposing. So if at the moment you don't have a research proposal, it might be very difficult. But if you already, even if you don't have a research proposal, but you already have a specific area that you want to focus your research on, you already have some schools in mind that are very good in that area research-wise. Maybe they have very good research team, facilities, you already have that. Then you already have a little bit of background on what is needed in that area. Okay, I could say you have a shot. But if at the moment you don't have a research proposal, you don't have any idea which research area you want to swing to, you don't even have any idea which school to start from, it's going to be a very difficult one, I must say. But given this is something that comes up yearly, you have time. This, like Mr. Cyprian and Chinonso has said, whatever is worth doing is worth doing well. Take that time, make your research, and then get ready to come strong the following year. So that's what I would say for now. Thank you.
All right, Charity, thank you. Thank you so much for answering that question. So you've heard her, you have to get ready. I mean, Cyprian has already pointed that out well. You don't have to celebrate Christmas right now. You need to lock yourself in and make sure you get all the details available for the scholarship, because Commonwealth is really a life-changing opportunity. I mean, it's something that actually changed my life, and I know PhD is a very, very is a big one. So if you want to be really competitive, you need to do the needful. No project proposal, possibly, or most importantly, there may not be any PhD scholarship application, scholarship award anyway. So from the look of things, I would go back to some of the critical questions that, and then I'll still come back to some of the questions that are being asked on the chat. So one of my questions is, in trying to write answering some of these essay questions that were being asked, because there are so many essay questions you are expected to write. The skills. Now, my question is, when you're discussing how the impact of your work can be measured, it's just a 100-word statement. And how do you put that kind of information, how the impact of your project or research can be measured? What kind of information are they expecting you to put in this kind of question? Cyprian, please.
Thank you very much. Measuring the impact of your project. That is the impact can actually be measured in a number of ways. You actually talk about you can talk about the capacity or building capacity in your field of study, or introducing a new method of doing something. For example, in my case, in the law, I would suggest that I would be able to write in 100 words that my impact will be measured by better implementation of laws adopted by public authorities in this way. I mean, you can express that in 100 words. It has to be, and it has to be very well related to your development impact. To say my impact, point out something very specific out of your impact statement and just write a sentence or two on how it can be measured. So this is the matrix. Point out and be as brief as possible. This is why you need to be very specific with your development impact. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for that information. There are so many ways you can write about your impact. The impact of your work can be mentioned, and Cyprian has actually pointed that out. So my next question will be going to Charity. So Charity, I understand that in writing some of these essays, you're being asked to write the objectives of your award. I know some persons might just write the objectives like an essay, or might just list it out in numbers, like 1, and then write one of the objective, 2, another objective, 3, another objective. So which approach did you adopt when you're writing your own objective of the award, and what information do you intend to include when you're writing that?
Okay, thank you, Chinonso. So I'll go straight to the point. When I was writing the objective for my PhD study, I focused on the skills I would be gaining if I'm awarded the scholarship. So what I did was looked at my research proposal, looked at my development impact statement, and came up with 3 specific skills that I would be improving on if awarded the scholarship. So those skills became the objectives for that study, for that award. One was my research skill, my project management improve. So research skills, project management, and leadership skills. So be the objective for everything I would be doing during the PhD study was tied around these 3 areas. I talked about how my research skills would improve given the fact that the school I'm applying to, they have great lecturers, great persons, resources for that particular area. I talked about how my project management skills would improve, and I tied it down to the research team that will be backing me up during my research, while carrying out my research. My supervisor and the other research team will be working with during my research. They actually have vast background when it comes to project management. They've done a lot in that area. So I tied it down to this is one of the objectives: gaining research skills, gain superior project management skills. I'll be better able to manage larger projects. Then lastly, leadership skills. These are some of 3 major things I said that would be my objective during the study. And if you look closely, the research area, improving my research skills, it tied down to what I'll be doing, carrying out research. Project management ties down to what I'll be doing after the award, talking about executing certain projects, whether in the NGO sector or in the government, state, local, or federal, state, or local government areas in government, carrying out certain projects that would improve or impact development in your country. And then leadership skills in whatever sphere you would be working on, whether health, agriculture, leadership skills are very, very important. And I think these are the three very key areas that a PhD student should really improve on when they are improve on, so as to come out strong, come out better. Let me use that term for a lack of better word. Come out better after such an experience. So thank you very much. Hope I was able to help someone.
Yeah, thank you so much, Charity, for that information. It was really good, and I mean, there is no better way to say that than what you've just done. So I will just quickly go on to the next question, which is in drafting out your long-term career plan, and how specific do you need to be when writing such piece of work? Because I believe that you're expected to write this in just less than 250 words or max 250 words. So how do you structure this kind of information? What exactly are they looking out for? Do you have to tie that to your research work? And what do you need to include if you ask that kind of question in the essay? So Cyprian, please, over to you.
Thank you very much. Long-term plans, actually, for me, it was easy because I am a lecturer. I've been a lecturer before I started my PhD. So I tied my long-term plans to being an academic, but I was able to be very specific to say that in my long-term plans is to produce, for example, 10 peer-reviewed articles by maybe 5 years after my qualification in these journals, and I specifically pointed out a number of journals and explained why I chose those journals, because they have a much wider audience. I'm going to do interdisciplinary research. I'd like to engage as much as possible in policy debates with the experts from other fields whose work directly impacts, for example, on law reform and policy implementation. I mean, you can be as specific as possible. If you know what you're doing, this should not really be a challenge. You can summarize in 250 words what I've just said. And it's doable as long as you have something to focus on. For example, long term is much easier. You just pick maybe one and explain it very well, which is what I did. Thank you.
Okay, that's really good. That's really good. I mean, I have to ask this question specifically because ideally, if you're applying for this scholarship, these are the essays you have to write, right? So that's why I'm picking them out specifically so that the audience will understand the kind of information that they will be including in their write-up. So moving on to the questions that are on the chat. Someone was asking, is it compulsory to have a distinction in master's degree before you are selected for the PhD scholarship? And another person is asking, can you move from BSc to a PhD in Commonwealth scholarship application? How feasible is that? I'll be asking you, Charity, please.
Okay, thank you very much. So for the first question, no, it's not a must that you must have a distinction. Merit is very okay. That's what I had. I had it 2-1 in my first degree, also 2-1 in my master's degree, if you are to grade. So it will fall into the merit range. So distinction is not a must. It isn't. So for the last question, please, Chinonso, could you repeat that, the last one? I was writing when you were talking before.
From BSc to PhD in Commonwealth, is that feasible?
Okay, well, I can't say for sure because I've not come across anyone who has done that, at least here in Nigeria. I don't know about the international scene, maybe from other countries, but I haven't come across anyone who has done that, because one of the criteria that was given for us when we were applying, I applied through the Federal Scholarship Board, was to have our BSc certificates, the originals, and also the master's certificate, the originals with us at hand when we went for interviews. So I'm not sure if you could move directly from a BSc straight into the PhD. Not sure at all. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much, Charity. It's crystal clear for those who are asking if you must have a distinction in your BSc or your MSc before you are competitive for the Commonwealth scholarship. First class does not guarantee that you're going to get a PhD scholarship. I mean, Commonwealth has made it clear, 2-1, it's enough. If you even have 2-2, I think there was a point where they mentioned if you had 2-2, then you can actually supplement it with a master's. If you have a master's degree, you can still be eligible to apply. For the fact that you're eligible to apply, you have every right to give it a shot. I mean, at the end of the day, you have nothing to lose. So 2-1 is enough, both in your BSc and your MSc. And thank God we have Charity, who is a classical example of that. And you can see that she's currently studying, doing her PhD under Commonwealth scholarship. Building on that particular question, I would like to ask you, Cyprian, do you think it will be feasible for someone who is currently doing an MSc right now to actually go on to apply for the PhD scholarship? Because I believe that, for you to actually apply, you must have completed your master's. I might be wrong in this aspect. So what do you think? Do you think it's possible for you to apply for PhD without actually completing your master's program at the point of application?
Thank you very much, Chinonso, for that question. Actually, the instructions on the Commonwealth scholarship form say that predicted grades are fine. Of course, your nominating agency may have different rules which require you to have a particular degree. For example, a particular master's degree or first degree. But Commonwealth allows the predicted grades. So if you're doing a master's now, you can say your predicted grades is a merit. I mean, there should be really someone, let's say Edifari, who actually adds clout to your prediction to say, I agree that looking at how he or she has performed so far, they may get a merit. I mean, if one of those people were your referees and they supplemented what you have said, it would be acceptable. Commonwealth is not rigid on that aspect. Just to go back on the question that you asked, whether someone with just a first degree can go to a PhD, actually, you can apply, but you can apply under what is known as the 3+1, which means you spend 1 year doing your master's before registering for a PhD, and Commonwealth grants those scholarships. But there's a condition that the university at which you apply to in the UK has to be a doctoral training center. There are a number of doctoral training centers, depending on which region in the UK. So the center of doctoral training, PhD training, has to be the university that you're applying to do a 3+1 PhD, which is directly from a first degree, but it's very demanding in terms of grades. The better the grades you have, the better the chances and that you have in doing it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Cyprian. Thank you for that exposition. It was really an eye-opener. And moving on to moving on to the question related to the essays, I also want to know, because I know as part of the essay for the PhD and even for the master's application, you are required to write and leadership experience statement. So in crafting out your voluntary and leadership experience, what are the specific information? Like, I know it's crystal clear from the application you were expected to summarize certain things they've already pointed out. So how do you go about writing this voluntary and leadership experience? It's actually capped 500 word limit. So how do you go about writing this? Charity, I'll be asking you, please.
Okay, thank you, Gina. So I'm sorry about the background noise. Hope it's not interfering too much. Some persons are having a sort of celebration close to where I am. So for the personal statements and then also leadership and voluntary experience, this is what I suggest you do. Use the STAR approach, STAR, to do that. Talking about situation, the task, the action, and the results. That's the STAR approach. So for the personal statement, tie around what you've been doing. If you've been, what you've been doing maybe from secondary, I did that. I tied what I had been doing from my secondary school days up to my BSc and then masters. All that I tied my personal life, my interests. I tied it all and ensured it was in my personal statement. But I made sure I structured it. I didn't want to sound too ambiguous. Ensure you use the STAR approach. Give an example of a situation. Talk about the task or whatever activity that was carried out. Then the action, the result, just tie it around that so that you are able to have a concise and then a smooth read. Whatever you are writing should have a smooth feel, like telling your life experience, how it ties to what you are now currently doing, your interest in that field, how you came up with the research, whatever way you want to swing it, ensure it's structured. That's why I said whatever you are writing, stick with the STAR approach. Same thing with the voluntary and leadership experience. My own case, it was very easy for me to write about that voluntary and leadership experience because I'm always volunteering for one thing or the other in the NGO sector. And what also helped me was I targeted organizations and institutions that I volunteered with so that they aligned with my interests. I didn't just volunteer because I wanted to volunteer. So it also helped me in writing that section. Again, go with the STAR approach. Whatever you are writing, even if there are a lot and you want to talk about a lot, yes, talk about them, but expand on a particular area that would give credence to the research you are doing and your current interests. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Charity. Thank you for that information. If you must write this statement, Charity has made it clear, please use the STAR approach. You know, the situation, the task, the action, and the result. You know, it gives you a clear trajectory of the kind of information you want to include in your writing, and it makes it very much easier when you have those thoughts in your head. Okay, I have to talk about the situation, I have to follow with the action, and then the task, and then the result. So it's crystal clear and it makes it very much easier. Thank you so much, Charity, for that information. Now, my next question will be around recommendation, right? One of the applicants who are actually attending this meeting asked a question about recommendation. Is it possible for you to seek for letter of recommendation from your proposed UK supervisor for the Commonwealth Scholarship? Do you think it is something that you'd encourage anybody to do when you're making this PhD application or scholarship application? Cyprian, I would like to hear your view on that.
Thank you very much. Actually, if you look at the form very clearly, your prospective supervisor is supposed to comment on the feasibility of your research and whether you are the right person to do that research. They already have a part. I would therefore not recommend adding them as a referee as well, because they have a part that they have to complete. And this is very important because if they say what you've written is not feasible, you will not be given the scholarship. So you have to focus on making sure they understand that they have a role to support your research project. So much so that whatever is happening, they should just focus on that. Don't give them an extra responsibility of being a referee. I would recommend against it. Don't use your prospective supervisor as your referee, because they have a part in the form where they have to support your proposal. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Cyprian. Thank you for answering that question. I believe the person who asked it must have understand what you're saying. I mean, it's really important that you pick out and separate your supervisor from your recommendation letter, your referee, because they all have their own role to play in the application. So I would also want to build on that particular question, because I understand that reference letter is is an important part of the application as well. And for Commonwealth, I think you're expected to provide about 3 referees while making your application. In choosing this referee for PhD application, what kind of persons do you think should fit into serving as your referee for this PhD scholarship application? Cyprian, please, can you continue on that, please?
Thank you very much. Actually, for me, it was when I looked at the form, if you have done your master's degree in the United Kingdom, they will say that one of your referees has to be the person who supervised, for example, your master's degree dissertation. And actually, I think it may be 4, not 3. The other person that I picked was someone that I worked with, an international consultant, in some of the works that I did in my own country. I worked with international consultants for like a few years, and actually I deliberately developed a good relationship because I knew that I would need their help in the future when I look for a reference. So make sure that you have work colleagues who actually know about you, even your supervisors or managers, and who will be able to write a reference for you. All those are acceptable. And if you can pick someone as well from your first degree, if you're still in touch, it would be also acceptable. So work colleagues, master's degree supervisors or teachers, or other supervisors in the types of work jobs that you have done. As you notice probably, these scholarships don't demand that you should have experience, but it helps if you have some, because the people you have worked with or you have worked under or who have managed you are able to provide you references. So one of my supervisors in my work actually did provide a reference. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you for answering that question concerning reference. Now, if you must know, reference is also a very critical component of your application. So you really need to get it right. Get the right persons to recommend you to write extensively on your application, talk about your research experience, and all those kind of relevant details should be included in your reference. It's very important. So moving on, a lot of people have been asking questions revolving around the nominating agency. And then I would want to ask this to you guys. What do you think about that? I mean, in Nigeria here, I know there are about, the FSB, the Federal Scholarship Board, and also even the Forum for African Women Educationists, FAWE, also can be used as a nominating agency. So I want to hear Charity's take on that. Which nominating agency did you use? And then looking at what is obtainable right now, because I know a lot of people, because of the COVID pandemic and all that, the usual processes are no longer the way it used to be, because some nominating agencies have not been allowed to, from some courses like Nigeria, for example, you were expected to apply for only PhD, and then some countries you're expected to apply for master. So can you briefly tell us about the nominating agency you used during your own time, and what the process was in the application?
Okay, thank you very much. So basically, there are 3 categories for nominating agencies. I think the first is usually schools that have an MOU with the Commonwealth, so to speak. Second is the nominating agency based in the countries, and lastly, NGOs. So mine was the Federal Scholarship Board here in Nigeria. I picked them as my nominating agency. And usually their process after you've submitted your application online, your ES, submitted your ES application, you get to go to an interview. Most often is always in Abuja. So you travel there to do your interview. So given your focal area, you'll be directed to specific persons that would interview you. So if you are in agriculture, if you are in veterinary medicine, if you are in clinical medicine, the clinical sciences, you have the various sections where they would direct you to and you'll be interviewed. So usually you would be asked to come with, I think about four copies each of your documents in 4 separate envelopes. You write your name, your region. Also, your region is also another thing. I'm from Edo State, so my region is the South Nigeria. So I had to go for the specific day that persons from the South were being interviewed. So that was how it basically went. So just to also chip in something extra, I would advise, because that was one of the mistakes I made for the first time I went there. I just went, I wasn't properly dressed. I have to say that. I was on jeans and a shirt because I just thought, oh, I'm going there, I'm going to talk about what I can do. How I look doesn't really matter, but it does. First impression is a very, very loud impression. So ensure you go formally dressed. You're applying for a PhD. So you go very dressed. Whatever awards you've gotten thus far, go with evidence of those awards. Then lastly, ensure your social media presence tallies with whatsoever you have in your application. For instance, if you go to my social media, my Facebook, Instagram, even my Twitter profile, you see clearly what I'm about. It tallies with everything that was in my application. So we don't want to see on paper you are telling us you volunteer for persons living with HIV, ensure you're working there. And then when we check your social media, we're seeing you making unsavory comments about persons like that. It doesn't tally. It doesn't tally. So whatsoever you're projecting on paper for them should match with what you have on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, or LinkedIn. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Charity. Thank you so much. That was really a very vital point you mentioned. I mean, I know most times people put up an application without taking cognizance of the fact that actually their social media can play a role. It can actually make or mar them, because when you are saying something different from what you've put in your application, obviously you're telling a different story. And it doesn't take much for these people to go and cross-check and run a quick check on your background to see the kind of information you've put out there for people to see. And then you come in the application, you're saying a different thing altogether. So I believe you need to make sure that you get all these things, you tick all these boxes, because they are vital, they are very important to your application and the success of it all. And then building on that particular part, I know some persons are also asking about a nomination from other agencies, right? And one of them is, which I know that is only peculiar to ladies, the Forum for African Women Education, that's FAWE. So I don't know if Charity, if you have any experience on that, because I understand that for them, when I was having a conversation in time past, someone told me that you don't necessarily have to go through interview stage like the FS. What's your take on that to start with?
Okay, actually, I didn't go through them. When I checked through the nominating agencies, I think Federal Scholarship Board has more slots when compared to schools and NGOs. So that was one of the reasons why I picked them as my nominating agency. At least I would have a greater chance of being selected. If you are going for a nominating agency and they have very limited slots, that increases competition, and most likely a lot of very, very good applications are going to get dropped. So that was one of the reasons I informed my going for the Nigerian Federal Scholarship Board. So, but if you go through your application and you feel, okay, going for the other organization is far, far better, then go for it. Go for it. It's a matter of what you think would work best, because you are applying for a PhD here, and to a certain degree, you have to be very, very, very strategic. Do exactly what you know would work best for you and help you stand out. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much, Charity. Thank you for that. And for those who are asking about HALIS as one of the nominating agency, I'm not sure if you're not a member of HALIS at this point in time. Obviously, you cannot apply with them because they made it crystal clear that for you to actually apply, you must have been a member with them. If you're not a member and you're seeking for access to apply for PhD scholarship, they're definitely not going to listen to you. So you must have been a member before now for you to use HALIS as one of your nominating agency. And again, thank you, Charity, for that information. One of the questions that I think attendee have asked, and I think I really need to bring it to your notice, is that assuming I don't have a supervisor right now, assuming I've not really made any significant progress towards this application, and I really, really, really need to apply for this scholarship, how do I go about looking for supervisors in the UK? What exactly do I need to do? What is the first thing I need to check? And what kind of information do I need to at least assess before I can actually look out for these supervisors? Cyprian, can you throw more light on that, please?
Thank you very much. Actually, the supervisor is, apart from your nominating agency, is one of the most important persons in your PhD scholarship application with Commonwealth. And if you cannot find a supervisor, it's really difficult because you will not be able to complete that part, and your form will not be, you will not be able to submit it. If you click submit, nothing will happen because it will say you have not completed all the parts. Just like leaving out a research proposal. How do you go about it? I think you check. All universities in the UK publish details of their academics on their websites, depending on the departments. And they also specifically state that they are interested in supervising research in particular areas. So always refer to the how you found the address, which is the website, and what you're looking for. And most of them are very responsive. They will come back to you. Of course, some other people are too busy, they may not come back to you, which is why I think when looking for a supervisor, send at least 3 initial emails. Whoever will respond quickly and is very responsive should probably be your supervisor. Of course, it's a much bigger topic, but this is what I can say very briefly, that pick at least 3 to increase your chances of getting a positive feedback. Don't just bank on one supervisor. It's quite risky because they may not be able to get back to you. Because with the most investors now teaching online, it's not very easy to reach these supervisors because some of them don't regularly check their emails. Some of them maybe check once every 2 weeks. So pick a number. You can even pick 5. The key thing is to be very clear and straight to the point with what you're looking for. And, in some cases, you might even attach your proposal and the CV to say, if you have a chance, please, can you look at my CV and my research proposal? Of course, the research proposal that you send to the university is very different from the one that you write in the Commonwealth application, because most universities expect you to write around 1,500 words in your research proposal, while Commonwealth may be asked may ask you not to write just like 800 words or 700 words, so they are slightly different. And those are the two most important things: a CV and a research proposal. Thank you.
All right, thank you, thank you. I mean, guys, you guys have heard him all. I mean, you have to make sure you get everything right. Your CV needs to be spot on, well articulated, and then you have to go straight to the point when you're contacting a supervisor if you want to get very easy and fast response from them. Personally, I've had a personal experience with supervisors in the UK. Like I can attest that they are very, very responsive. You just have to be articulative in putting out your information there and making yourself a strong candidate for them to get back to you. Because ideally, because you're seeking for Commonwealth scholarship, I mean, if you have a good profile, definitely they'll reach out to you because they are not going to be spending their money on you. You know, someone else is going to take care of that expenses. So why wouldn't they accept you if you're a very good candidate? Remember, these supervisors, they always want to get someone who is of great quality to come in and expand their research expertise and their research background, because they're always looking for quality and good students for that particular position. Right, we're running out of time, and I think right now the meeting should have ended, but I quickly would apologize because we're going to take a little bit of couple of minutes out of your time to just quickly round up our meeting today. But before the roundup, I would want to ask one last question, and that would be to Charity. A lot of persons are thinking, I mean, what are the benefits for people who are actually married? Do you think Commonwealth would have some allowances for marital, people who have their wife or their husband? I understand you're married too, so is there any provision for your husband to come to the UK and work while you are studying? Hello, is Charity still with us? Hello. Oh, okay.
Okay, can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, thank you. About make provisions for a spouse. I know the CSE makes provisions, makes stipends available for your spouse and at least 3 children. But when it as regards your spouse and children traveling, you have to make that arrangement by yourself. The travel provisions are only made available for the scholar, the person who got the award. So while they would make stipends available for your spouse and at least 3 children, whatever travel arrangements, your visa, the flight tickets that your spouse and the children need to join you, you have to make that available by yourself. This Commonwealth scholarship does not cover for that, unfortunately, but they still make available stipends for your husband and then at least 3 children, which will go a long way to also help. So it's left for you to plan accordingly, see how both of you can come to an understanding, make appropriate arrangements. If it's for you to travel ahead first, and then maybe after a few months, your husband, your children hopefully get to join you as well. That would be far, far better. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Charity. Well, it's very much possible. I actually wanted to skip this question, but I know the person that actually asked the question might have been thinking about, oh, how do I bring my family? How do I bring my wife? How do I bring my husband to come and stay in the UK with me? Now you see it's very much possible. So you can actually bring your spouse down to the UK to work. I mean, I know they can work full time while you are studying, so very much possible. And then, interestingly, the UK government also make provisions for children within a certain age to actually attend studies free of charge without having to pay anything. So, I mean, that information should be online. I don't know the exact age, but I know a couple of my friends, their children are actually studying free of charge without having to pay anything. So that's also an option you have to look into. Right, so I think at this point, we've actually exhausted our time. And I really want to thank our panelists for bringing out their time to come and share from their wealth of experiences. But before I go on to ask for their final words, I would like to ask if they would really want to, because I know some persons might want to, chat them up or get some information from the what we've done here, because we did not exhaustively cover every aspect of the Commonwealth PhD application, but I know some persons would like to continue the conversation even after the meeting must have ended. So do you think that's something that will be possible? Can you share your details? Is it possible to share your details, maybe your LinkedIn address or your contact details on how to reach you if any of them have questions regarding this PhD application?
I think for me, I will type my email in the chat. You can drop me an email.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'll just type in my school university. I'll just type it now. And so you can send me questions. I'll be happy to help you. And if they are more extensive, I'll probably connect you on my WhatsApp number. And it's easier if you email me first so that I know who I'm connecting to on WhatsApp. So it's doable, yes. I always welcome. Actually, I do a lot of work to encourage others to do a PhD. And I know it's not easy because it's a very heavy process. Thank you.
All right. I can also see Charity have also shared her details on the chat box. So you can always reach out to them if you have further questions about the PhD's Commonwealth Scholarship application. Finally, I would want to get, your final notes. What would you tell our applicants? What would you tell our applicant? What exactly message are you going to leave with them so that they go on and do the right thing and then get the scholarship that they desire? I will be starting with Charity. Just your final words.
Okay. So the Commonwealth Scholarship Award is a big one. So what I would advise you do, go all out. Don't give it 50%, don't give it 90%, give it 100%. Go all out. Go take the extra mile, like what I did. I sent my failed application, the first Commonwealth Scholarship application I submitted, I failed. I sent it to my supervisor. She went through, she gave me points on where to adjust. I also reached out to somebody who got the Commonwealth PhD.
Hello, Charity, are you still there? Oh, I guess we've lost her. She's no longer available. So, Cyprian, do you mind taking over from here?
Okay, I think I would agree with what Charity said. Give it 100%. I've seen most good, well-intentioned people applying for scholarships, but they give it 50%. 50% is not good enough. You need to give it 100%. Cancel what you were supposed to do. Cancel all that rice and the chicken that we were supposed to eat at New Year and at Christmas, and focus on this, because it's a very good scholarship. I mean, I don't know of any other scholarships that, for example, pay an allowance for your wife and for your children. Of course, it's below what the government requires, but if you have extra resources, you'll be able to get visa for them and, be able to get air tickets. And if you can do that, I mean, the UK is actually a very good place because, as the Chinonso said, I mean, school is free below 16 years. So you don't have to pay secondary school or primary school. I mean, it's like the dream scholarship. And also mentioning to your supervisor that you will be applying for a Commonwealth scholarship is very good because it reflects on their CV. It's a positive to have a student placed with the university. And it's like these days it's more difficult to get private students because of COVID. So they would want to get as many scholarship students as possible. So really give it 100%. Do not give it 50%. You will not succeed. Give it 100%. I think those are my parting words. Thank you.
All right. All right. Thank you so much to our panelists. Thank you for that. It was amazing to have you guys on to share from your heard them. If you really want to continue this conversation of this particular meeting, you can actually contact them via email that have been shared on the chat group. And then I don't know, that should be all for now. So thank you guys. Thank you for coming. Thank you for being part of this event. And I wish you all success in your PhD application. I sincerely hope you go on to secure the PhD scholarship because it's really worth it. All the best, guys. We'll see you guys next time when we have this.